Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Stop, Look, and Listen. I'm your host, LeTroy Gardner. This week, we have a social architect, a cultural strategist, an oral historian, an author, a film director. She's dedicated to preserving and amplifying the lived experiences of Caribbean people, of women, of communities in the African diaspora. We have Majella Mark.
Majella.
Majella. Welcome to the show, Majella.
Hi, thank you for having me. I truly appreciate it.
Yeah,
appreciate it. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. And like we've been kind of giggling about this platform that I'm using and
Yeah, I'm technology, right? I mean, it's fascinating how we advance as humans. Now I'm getting philosophical, but it's just, it's exciting to see new things come about,
Yeah,
I know
it's like
for
you have to
me
learn
anyway.
something new every day, it seems.
I know. But it's
It's,
exciting to learn things. It's like,
oh yeah.
your noggin's still working.
Oh, exactly,
Hmm.
exactly.
Yeah.
So take us on a fantastic voyage into the life and
Okay.
times
Oh.
of Majella Mark.
Oh, okay. Um, well, both of my parents are from the island of Grenada. Um, they came here in the 80s, during a time, unfortunately, where the island was invaded. Um, I think Grenada has a very specific history within the
Mhm.
America region, um, where my parents really didn't have anything to go back to. So I guess it wasn't identified as refugees, but there was a bit, I could say, of leniency because unfortunately in 1983, the island was, and the country overall was invaded during the Reagan administration. Um, and so coming to the US, one thing that was very special about this kind of adjustment is that there's a very specific relationship between Grenada, as a predominantly Black country, and African Americans or ADOS. Um, and the reason for that is the Jewel movement that was led by Morris Bishop. I know I'm going into history, so let me know if I'm going into random things.
Okay.
Um, the Jewel movement was actually mentored by the Black Panther Party in the US. So there's that connection. Of course, as a consequence of that, Grenada was also seen as a threat by the United States. It's English-speaking, predominantly Black country that is taking mentorship by the Black Panther Party and their values and their bylaws and their principles. So and I say that because I'm very grateful for my parents who just naturally was very embracing of not only the African American culture and community, but the history overall. So
Mhm.
I did learn American history, or specifically Black American history growing up, even if it wasn't taught in schools. I was embraced in everything from, learning about Kwanzaa or learning about the Juneteenth, learning about these various things, again, because it was something that was more of an obligation than just, oh, we're here and we're just going to adjust and we're going to adapt to whatever we adapt to in this country, United States. Um, I think I take that with me. Now, I'm going to fast forward quite a bit,
Okay.
where now in my career, I'm very grateful where as I just take my passion for history, and specifically my passion for the African diasporic history and the connections between the Caribbean, South America, the Northern American countries, and the continent or motherland of Africa, and seeing how it's all connected in a way that is creative, in a way that is palatable to everyone. So I think what we'll focus on for this episode, I think once Hurricane Beryl happened, at that time, I've already worked on developing entities like Onyx Collective for Hulu and Disney. And at that point, I've helped archive producing for podcasts like Black Women of Amherst College and films and various projects. in exhibitions. So then from there, at that point, when Hurricane Beryl happened in 2024, um, I was in that hurricane with my sister, but I was very concerned about the historical preservation of our history, specifically in Grenada. Now, I know a lot of times we've seen Black history specifically erased, not only by natural disaster, by man made disaster as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for me, it was kind of a triggering urgency of thinking, oh, what's happened to the Carriacou Museum? Because it is a museum that was founded 2 years after Grenada's independence from the United Kingdom. And it was founded by the people. So it was the island, the members and I guess, the residents of the island who built this historical society and this museum. So they didn't have like government funding or various kind of like entities or structures. It was really, run by the people, volunteers. Um, so then, of course, realizing that what I thought was me just sending some emails to associations and entities like, hey, how do we support and fundraising? It then turned into like, oh, well, you have experience in this. We need some new blood. And I, in respect to my elders, part of the board and of the
Mm-hmm.
society, but I think they recognized that they needed younger ideas, younger blood, um, to be able to then help move the museum forward. So I spearhead the rebuilding of the museum, which is taking a more modern approach. Not because we're trying to erase the history, but we're trying to address the history in a way that does not focus on focus on the actual colonialism
Mm-hmm.
of the architecture. So I know there's a lot of emphasis of wanting to preserve specific buildings, but I think what people don't realize is there's an emotional disturbance, especially for our melanated brothers and sisters when they see specific buildings or architect type models that remind them of their ancestors' suffering. If it is plantations, if it is cotton mills, cotton gins, which is in the case of Carriacou, if it is other entities that remind them of slavery. So to take the approach of preserving that history, but seeing it from a futuristic point of view and how our children will see it, they know that that is the past as we're evolving, and knowing that even in the physical building, they could actually see the future aligning. They see Wakanda, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, So that's really the work I'm doing now. I have a history book coming out on the 8th, but it's focused on the history of feminism through a weird concept called with cats called "Cats Are Trash Human Beings." What I learned about feminism through my cats, and really is focusing a lot on showcasing that feminism is not a Western concept. Feminism was an equality and in the sense of seeing men and women working together is a concept that you see in Africa, is a concept that you see in indigenous tribes, is a concept that is not foreign, um, and is not a sense of battling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Battling among the sexes. It's showcasing that there are challenges, but also a sense of evolution that we can look back in history to learn from and know that we can move forward. So I don't know if you had any questions. I know I just rambled on about a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I
Okay.
I definitely want to dig into more of the Carriacou
Yeah.
museum
Yeah.
and like how you mentioned that they realized they needed like a younger perspective. A lot of times when it comes to preserving like
Mhm.
our historical documents, like there's often a divide, a generational
Mm.
divide. So were you surprised by that? How they were so um welcoming to
It
your
was still a
perspective?
challenge. It
It
was
was
still
still
a
a challenge.
challenge. Oh, of course. I think when you have these generational differences, you have the sense of perspective where some again, sometimes as one generation after other gains more privilege, right? They have the space to question things more. They have the space and the time to um, actually make decisions that can further advance more further ahead of time. Um, it can become challenging. For example, when people are very comfortable in their space, so I think many of our elders was very comfortable with, oh well, we should have like pillars, like plantation pillars or something that reflect, the colonial, perspective of the land, right, of the country, where, of course, myself, and I'm very grateful to have like a young person with me on this journey, Benaya Matheson, who's based in the UK, where our perspective is, well, we can honor the land um, with representing or recognizing the indigenous of that land, but we don't need to honor the slave holders. We don't need to honor the architecture. We don't need to honor um, the space in a way where we are highlighting too much of what uh, brought on our suffering, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think not only bringing a balance of, yes, these specific moments in our history, like slavery, colonialism, etc. But I think it's a way more important highlighting um, the Black people who've done amazing things, like Canute Calise, an artist in Carriacou, or the recent kayaks who are doing amazing work in art and in politics and in different realms and industries. I think when you're too comfortable trying to keep things the same, you're also enabling the sameness, right? And there's a mentality thing where
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, this is what it was. It's like, yes, but does it need to be what it will be 50 years from now when our young children are walking into spaces, they're learning the history, and they're just saying, yes, I existed on this island because of slavery. It's like, no, that's one part of it. But because of that, what we were able to accomplish after slavery,
Yeah.
what are we able to accomplish in 2050? How do we embrace and add to our evolution and really be able to be self-sustaining, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, so before the interview, I mentioned that I used to work at Wilson Library at
Mm-hmm.
UNC Chapel Hill, and we had the Southern Historical Collection, Southern Folklife
Mm-hmm.
Collection, and a lot of the work was, tied to oral history, which is something that you're
Yes.
heavily involved in. Um, to kind of follow up on what you were just saying about colonialism and slavery, obviously being in some cases overly documented and not
Yes.
having enough documentation, say like within the last century.
Yes.
Oral history projects are vital to that. How difficult is it to get someone to understand that their story is important?
I think it's recognizing the value in self-existence. I think is helping people recognize that their story is important. It's an accumulation, right? For
Hmm.
example, I get very everyone knows the emphasis of the history and the details of the JFK assassination, right? They
Hmm.
understand from beginning to end what happened. What I'm interested in is the point of views of that moment. The person who opened the door for the stretcher to come in, the person who was in traffic during that time, the person who heard it on the radio for the first time. So when you add those perspectives together, you get a more detailed and clearer idea of that main event, right? So
Hmm.
when I'm thinking about oral history, and specifically for the African diaspora in whatever capacity, what I'm thinking about is not just, oh, well, there's this main event that occurred in history that we document. I want to know What were you feeling? What were you doing? Were you holding on to something specifically? When you hold on to that item today, does that still give you a more clearer memory of that moment? You know, understanding that something as simple as, I don't know, the way you comb hair. Someone could do an oral history of just combing hair and saying like how, and then looking at each person expressing something they may think is mundane, like, oh, I'll comb my child's hair, and thinking, well, if we accumulate all those interviews, what are their common threads? How is those common threads connected back to traditions in Africa? Can we actually see the trace of the habits of our ancestral practice within something that seemed mundane, like combing hair? Through these interviews, people thinking like, oh, like I just something that I just do. Yeah, but can you, if you connect the dots and you scale it back and you look at the bigger picture, it is something more significant. It's the human experience overall. So we're all individuals that's connected. So I think once you explain it that way, then people are more open to say, okay, I guess my story is important. I guess me sharing where I was born, what I ate for breakfast, what I did for work is also important because it is a part of the human experience, humanity's history being documented. That
Hmm.
makes sense?
Of course.
Okay.
So, like, talk about rising from the waves. That's
Mm,
your oral history initiative capturing the voices
yeah.
of the Carriacou
Hmm.
residents.
So Rising of the Waves is a project that was necessary. I'm working with Dr. Claire Nusses is someone else, but Dr. Christiana Bass, and she has spearheaded this project. And me being part of the Carriacou Museum, it was a collaboration of how do we document the aftermath of Hurricane Beryl. And so I took the time to actually speak to different individuals and hear their experiences, seeing them, they're standing in a corner and seeing their roofs ripped off from their homes, the money that they accumulated in a home. And this is something that's common in the Caribbean where mortgages is something very new in the Caribbean. In the past, you had to save up your money and build your home. And then you
Hmm.
build it piece by piece once you got more money, right? So it wasn't like you just built like, oh, I got an extra 5,000. Now I could build a bathroom. I got an extra, 2,000. Now I could put some tiles down. And that's how it worked in the Caribbean. So when you see someone who's in their 80s and they saved up their money and then they build their home to put their children in, and then it gets completely wiped away by a hurricane, you realize that was their life savings and their life story within one space. And now it's been wiped out by a natural disaster. And I think what people don't realize with small island developing states, SIDS, is that we see the impact of global warming and climate change more significantly on smaller surface countries than these large developed countries such as the US or Canada. So a hurricane or earthquake that is probably somewhere in the United States or somewhere in Europe is probably going to be a little bit less devastating. I'm not saying it's not equally devastating, but the impact of the actual recovery is probably going to be less significant than on a small island where 90% of the island is gone. Again, infrastructure is not there to actually be able to rebuild. And a lot of the funding, right, for these type of situations is based off of support and charity, right? A lot of it is either the government asking for some kind of support from the United Nations or something, the more developed countries are giving a $1.4 million here or there, saying like, oh, yes, we, I guess whatever historical, guilt or what have you they may have, they feel like, okay, I'm contributing to rebuilding this country, right? Um, but I think people don't realize that there's individuals where they psychologically scarred. They see their livelihood and their what was their legacy wiped out, and they absolutely have a sense of helplessness and they don't know where to put that feeling. So having this oral history project is a moment for them to be able to share their feelings. We're also including group therapy and then actually have a therapist on hand on the team for those who actually need to be able to get a bit more help and support, because I don't know if it was offered. You know, I know that we ourselves offer that to individuals on the island so they could actually try to finally mend, because it's happened 2 years ago now, almost,
Hmm.
to be able to actually help them deal with what happened. I think it's an opportunity for them to actually share the overall story, um, and see the significance in their own existence through this project. Even though it is focused on the aftermath of a hurricane, they're able to share what they did lose, photographs, you know, art, artwork, diaries, their
Hmm.
favorite shirt. Having them have a moment to just vent and share their story and know that that story is documented, and they know that, okay, at some point, maybe 2 years from now, 50 years from now, somebody might actually take the time to sit down and listen to this story, my story, me, you know? And I think that is something that each one of them who experience this traumatic event should have the space and the opportunity to do.
Hmm. Like, how does like hearing these stories impact you personally?
It makes me very angry. Because I realize that a lot of times when we have these natural disasters, um, some of them, it could, these natural disasters don't have to be as severe as they are if infrastructure was put in place. If money was invested in building, okay, and again, levees, building various infrastructure. I volunteered for Katrina after Hurricane Katrina. I went there multiple times over the years, after Katrina of a 5-year period. And so that is what also helps me have a better understanding of what could happen when an identity can be erased. Now, New Orleans specifically, now we know, is enriched in a Black culture, is enriched, and even like a Caribbean-esque culture, right? There is
Hmm.
influence of Caribbean there. And to see whole communities, Black communities specifically, wiped out, and then the distribution of resources and funding and support not be equitable, is very heartening, very heartbreaking for me, because I see Black history, Black identity being systematically and strategically erased because an exploited opportunity was faced. And he thought, oh, this is a great opportunity to then redevelop certain areas, right?
Hmm.
To be able to redevelop and redefine and rebrand areas that we deemed not valuable before the hurricane. So, my issue is when we have, again, smaller islands in the Caribbean, literally a couple hours away from the United States, right? Two max, sometimes 45 minutes. In my case, in Grenada, is 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours. And to see history being erased, and the idea is different and grateful for nonprofits, NGOs, and different startups trying to come in and not asking what the people actually want. They're trying to tell them what they need and not actually asking the people what they want. That is very irritating to me.
Hmm.
Um, I think one thing I did was I spoke at a legislative forum in Washington, D.C. about that specific topic. And there's a lot of emphasis of different issues that come about in the Caribbean and its connection to the United States, right? The United States, they do have quite a bit of, opportunities. Grenada itself has one of the biggest American medical schools in the area in the Caribbean. Um, and I spoke specifically on, we do not need charity. What we need is investment. We need infrastructure, preventative mechanisms that help to prevent this much damage. 90% of Carriacou was actually gone. Pinimatnik, the smaller island next to Carriacou, same thing. Same thing. And the people themselves are rebuilding, their communities rebuilding. And again, you have one entity giving 44 million, not directly to the people, to the government. Another's giving 1 million here. Too many are like, oh, we want to help out. Great. But what we have is a situation where, again, instead of seeing how do we make sure the infrastructure works so that we don't have something like this happen again, we have a situation that's like, well, after the devastation, then we go ahead and come in, and then we're going to go ahead and build what we want to build and give structure that we want to do without asking people what they want.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So,
Yeah.
how does oral history function differently in small communities compared to larger communities?
I think you could see the connections easier because smaller communities mean people are closer together. They're more
Mhm.
connected. They small towns and small communities, they know each other, right? They have the opportunity to have this, the chance to know each other because they're in close proximity. So you can see the connections. You can see when someone tells a story about, playing in the ocean, and then another person give that same story. You realize geographically, oh, they weren't far apart from each other. They're in that same moment, but they're both sharing from a different perspective in a geographically, significant point. And it's very amazing to see even just events where something will occur and they mention, oh yeah, this I remember when there was a concert and these people came to the island, and you understand that people share the same story and they're sharing it from different points of view, from different, perspectives, and understanding like, oh, now I can see a bigger picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really great. Something as simple as like riding a bike for the first time. I think people like just simple things like that. It doesn't always have to be disaster. I
Yeah.
think we need to show also Black people doing simple things like creating like games and what their wedding looked like, or them learning how to needlepoint or something. It's just showing simplicity in life experiences and showing that yes, like it doesn't always have to be a march. It doesn't always have to be us like campaigning to vote. It doesn't always it's simple things of just seeing, oh, like yeah, I learned how to ride a bike,
Uh-huh.
and I love that. I love
Right.
that.
Dr. Todd McLean provides periodontal and dental implant services in 2 convenient locations. They offer over a decade of experience treating patients, and appointments can even be scheduled in the evenings, weekends, or early mornings. Give them a call in Chapel Hill at 919-537-9774 or in Durham at 919-484-8338, or visit them online at gumsandimplants.org.
So, I mean, you talk about like memory as something that's living and not static. Like, what does that mean in practice?
Mm. I think every experience we have accumulates into our own existence of who we are today. Those who have memories of us. Because I think there's a sense of existing from the perspective of your own existence, of what you think others see yourself as, those who actually see you from outside, and then how you internally, see yourself when you're alone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to look into your own past in the present to then make decisions of the future, and knowing that those decisions you make of the future is going to be decisions that does impact, even though you might think something as simple as going out for coffee, it's like, oh, it's nothing, it's not connected, but it might actually be connected into a ripple effect of some kind of historical event that you just not aware of. You thinking, I'm just doing something as simple as walking down the street, or I'm doing as simple as, wearing this particular shirt, and not realizing you're a part of a story. You're a part
Mm-hmm.
of history being made. It's very meta. I think that people use that word, right? Meta. Very
Yeah.
meta. It's like even like as I'm like accumulating and preserving artifacts, I also have to like severely document me actually preserving and trying to rebuild and trying to protect artifacts, because that in itself, me doing that is history for
Uh-huh.
the future.
Right.
So those will be reading about, which is oh gosh, like it's very very eerie to me, like people in the future will be reading about Majella Mark in the past and how she was trying to save history in
Uh-huh.
that particular moment. you know?
Yep.
That's what I mean. It's very kind of like, you think about it like, oh, like this in itself, this moment itself is history.
Yeah.
It's like we're
Well,
documenting it.
exactly. Well, talk about that connective tissue between, the work that you do as a oral historian
Hmm.
and your, the film projects that you work on and the
Hmm.
books that you've written and you're in
Yeah.
the process of completing.
So I'm very grateful that I had a niece. I'm delusional enough to just be like, you know what? The worst that can happen is rejection. It's like, okay, I can get used to that. That's fine. Like, that's nothing new. Like, it's the human experience, right? So when I think about different entities, for example, the book I mentioned before about the history of feminism, that came about a painting party I was doing. And then during the pandemic, the painting party ended. But what was special about that painting party, it was called the Pussy Plate Painting Party, inspired by Judy Chicago, was the point of it was how do we get different people together with different perspectives and using art therapy, have them discuss issues pertaining to equality in a way that people are uncomfortable talking about.
Mm.
We've had abortion doctors who's painting next to people who are pro-life. We've had, women who were we had women who didn't understand what transgender, experiences were and didn't, and felt a certain way about that sitting next to someone who's non-binary. And hearing the discussion. I think the most amazing ones is here seeing men kind of in real time seeing the female body itself in a way where like, oh, I'm thinking about, as I'm painting, my mother's giving birth, or I think about I didn't realize that I did all these psychedelic colors and maybe I do see my wife's, like that. So then be able to take all these conversations and realize I think we need to really teach this history in a way that is palatable. And then, oh, I actually have the look at that, the universe. So, and actually have the book. So, be able to teach, right?
Cats
History
are
in a way.
trash.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like, yeah, cats are trash human beings. Because I was stuck during the pandemic, I was stuck with my cats, and I realized I'm like, wow, they're so fascinating. Like, they
Hmm.
don't want to be touched. They just don't want to be touched. They know when they want their food. They know when they want to sleep. It's like, imagine if human beings was just very much with their boundaries and very much kind of like, it's clear cut. They spoke directly. They just like, yeah, this is it. So it's kind of using the metaphor of cats and teaching history of various times in history, specifically like showcasing like, yes, like Roe versus Wade happened, but also there was another situation, and it's in the book, where it counters that, and we have to look at that perspective. I'm very Libra in that way. I
Hmm.
think with other things like my film, I'm from Hartford, Connecticut. That's where I was born. And teaching the history of Hartford, Connecticut. I think a lot of people don't know that migration was was something that connected Black people during the 40s and 50s. We have the Windrush era for the UK, right? Everyone that history is well documented of how the British, they sent boats over to the Caribbean and said, we need workers, we'll give you a passport and some British citizenship, and you come and work and do the odd jobs that the British people don't want to work, right? We know what happened during the Brexit situation where all of a sudden it became a mess. But yeah, that's for another episode. But I don't think people realize that the United States had a similar program.
Hmm.
They needed someone to work in tobacco fields. They need someone to pick things in the fields. And not just, and you thinking, oh, it must be in Alabama. No, Connecticut. People were picking tobacco in fields and they needed people to pick. So where did they go? They go to the Caribbean. They welcome like people from Puerto Rico, Jamaica, all these different places. Like, hey, we need someone who's willing to go ahead and stand in the hot heat and pick tobacco from fields. And what makes this very special about Connecticut specifically is that many people don't know, and this is why this film was needed, is as I was speaking to different people, speaking on their experiences during the pandemic specifically, and how we even came about with, I will say more of a purple state than a blue state,
Hmm.
um, is that it's all based off of a speech that Martin Luther King Jr. did at the University of Hartford, speaking about liberalism and how it's not enough to just have a sign that says Black Lives Matter on your front lawn, right? You have to actually pick a side. You have to pick a side, and you have to stand 10 tones down on that side. On that side, and people don't know that Martin Luther King Jr., while he was in college in Morehouse, actually during the summer picked tobacco in Connecticut, and he was a young man because a lot of African Americans also migrated to the north. Him as a young man picked tobacco next to other brothers and sisters, right, from the West Indies. And so it's African American. So this notion of there's this history where in the Black community was us versus them, and what we taught is this by design. It's by design to put us against each other with these various stereotypes that have been infiltrated into our minds. Whereas the real history is the African Americans was standing by Jamaicans, standing by Puerto Ricans. They were all standing together picking tobacco for industry. For industry. While people were at war, they still need to smoke their cigarettes. And so I think teaching that history and those who are still alive to be able to hear from them. I'm still trying to find someone who actually picked tobacco with Martin Luther King Jr. I would love to find somebody. But to be able to hear, yes, this is what our lives was like. We were out here. It's not new that we have black immigrants coming to the United States and working. It's a lot of them, they were invited to do the grunt work that many others did not want to do. So now where we have our situation, right, with ICE and what have you. Now is again the delusion of thinking this is a new concept for the United States. It's not. The United States on many occasions invited immigrants. They invited people from different ethnicities to come and to do the work that the people here don't want to do. And that's including people who are ADOS, who needed work themselves. And they, of course, was doing the work that many others did not want to do. And they were comrades. They were our peers. And I'm saying this coming from the perspective as a Caribbean woman, saying me and those of the other Black communities. There was a point in time where it was harmonious, where it wasn't, you're from Africa, you're from Dominican Republic, you're from, Venezuela. It was not that. It was, we're all kinfolk. And we all trying to survive out here, and we're trying to get things done. We're trying to survive. We're trying to all build for our families, build our legacies. But somewhere down the line, that got very disoriented, very manipulated, and it became this kind of thing Africans don't like Black Americans, and they think they're we're lazy, and then Caribbean people all they do is drink and smoke weed, and it's just all these different, and I'm this has to be by design. It has to be. So then when you think about my work with, I'm trying to bring it all together now for you. When you think about the work with the Carriacou Museum and what I'm doing, it's the same thing. How do we preserve that information? How do we make sure that our people are not having someone else speak their truth, having somebody else give the narrative of their lives? That's why oral history is important. It's coming from the horse's mouth. It's coming from you directly. It's coming from you directly. You are telling your story. Now, you tell your story the way you want to tell your story. So maybe it's some of it, maybe exaggerated or fabricated, what have you. That's your business. It's your history. It's your history.
Yeah.
So if you want to say you were boxing one guy on the street, and actually it was, I was boxing 5 guys at one time, and really it was just one. That's your business. Because sometimes I think of myself I know Uncle over here. He's like, and I rode for 5 miles, and this, was it really 5 miles? And you did that barefoot?
Yeah.
Did you? But then I'm but it's his story though. Who am I to tell him it's not? It didn't happen.
We wasn't there.
Who am I to tell him it didn't happen? Who am I to say it didn't happen? Right?
Yep.
Who am I to tell? Well, who am I to say? Oh yeah, wasn't I met Michelle Obama one day, and I know she had a crush. Who am I to say it didn't happen? That's his perspective, his story.
Even our dreams are our stories.
Yep. and it's amazing. A lot of the things that's off the record right? Because a lot of times they want to say things that's off the record, and it's fascinating. Because I'm like, you
Mm-hmm.
did what and how? It's like, oh, well, you know, it was the 60s. It was like, okay. And I won't repeat because, again, that was not my place to repeat it, but I do learn from it.
Yeah.
I learn from these experiences when you hear our aunties and uncles speaking about when they were in their youth, or speaking about when they were at war, speaking about, you know, when they were in a segregated space, and they're not just talking about the suffering, they're talking about those moments of you know, glee.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, you know, I had my first kiss under this tree, and this is those are special moments. Those should also be documented. You know.
Yeah. Like before we wrap,
Ah,
like I definitely wanted to bring up that you're developing a coffee table book
yes.
um on the global connection of the indigo color and plant to Africa, the Caribbean, in my backyard, the Gullah Geechee community. I'm from Beaufort, South Carolina, St. Helena Island,
Oh.
South Carolina. Uh,
Yes. Let me tell you, I've never had such a peaceful sleep in my life than in Gullah Geechee.
mm-hmm.
The first time I swear, and I tell everybody this, I swear we stayed, I forgot her name now. We stayed at a doula's house.
Mm-hmm.
She was from Washington, D.C., and she moved there years ago after her children grown. She moved there. The Gullah Geechee, and it was the anniversary of Daughters of the Dust. So we went to the Penn Center and we saw it with people who were related to those in the film, people who
Mm-hmm.
were in the film, who were in the crew, and watched the film. And that's when I first, in this connection, I was like, wait a minute. The way you cook, the way you speak, the way your mannerism, the way the mother was snatching up the child, you know, in the community, I'm thinking, I see that in Grenada. I see that. I see that in Hartford,
Mm-hmm.
in the North End. Like we have the same mannerisms. There's a lot of sayings that's the same. A lot of the ingredients and the way we cook things are the same. We just have different terms for it. And so indigo came about because in Carriacou there's an indigo well that's no longer operating. And I realized we used to grow indigo. And I'm like, I think of indigo, I think of this dark blue, like I think of it as this beautiful dark blue. And I think about, and for some reason my mind automatically like beautiful dark black men who just like this indigo in a painting. And I'm like, oh, like indigo is this blackness that is just so magical, and it exudes like this magic and this kind of sense of royalty, in sense, this sense of like spiritual and celestial um being. And that's what, I don't know why that color really kind of spoke to me when I was in Carriacou and learning about the history of indigo there. And then I go to the Gullah Geechee and find out you grow indigo too. I'm like, wait a minute, you were growing indigo, so pretty much doing the same thing,
Yeah.
growing indigo, using indigo dye, use for different things. The blue bottles that's in the yards.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, that's beautiful. And then once I went to Senegal. I went to Senegal, and then I'm seeing the indigo fabric and the dark skin of these beautiful people. And I'm thinking, we're all connected. Like if people people are very like we're like, why are you like what is this indigo? It's like, you mean for like jeans? Like I was like, forget about the indigo jeans. I said, listen, focus on who had to grow the indigo, who had to pick the indigo, how the indigo had to be manufactured, how they even got inspired to use indigo in denim. You know, is looking at that history. And specifically, I didn't want to look at, oh, like the picking of the, you know, this idea of the plantation and the slavery. No, that's not what I wanted to focus on. I want to focus how we used a color, a plant, how we used the identity of something that may come across so simple, and somehow in 3 geographical locations, all was able to traditionally connect it and use it in the same way. I think that's beautiful. It
Yeah.
just showed me that we are connected. It's like if like when you travel somewhere, you see another black person, you do the head nod. It's like that. It's like, hello, like we're connected. When I
Mm-hmm.
go to Gullah Geechee, I'm like, that's pretty much, that's American Caribbean. And then when you learn the history that a lot of people from, I think it was, I don't know if it was Barbados or Bahamas, they brought slaves from the Bahamas to the Gullah Geechee. And Gullah Geechee is one of the few places in the United States. There's other places, right, in the South specifically too.
Right.
But because this Geechee is not just in South
Yeah.
Carolina.
Yeah. Pretty much from North Carolina all the way down to Florida.
Yes, yes. To be able to understand that history of, these Black people and how they've been able to preserve so much of their culture despite the constant manipulation, the absolute violence and aggressive stripping of identity. And they're able to hold on to so much of their identity still through cooking, through their speech, through the way they move and dance. So to be able to do that, I told myself after this book about cats and feminism, I said I have to do this on Indigo because I was like, I need to connect the dots. I love connecting the dots to things. So that's what I did with this Cats Are Trash Human Beings book. But for Indigo is connecting the dots, connecting how even though we've had this history, and mind you, it's a short history of us in the African diaspora in the motherland, having this riff of like who's better than who and what have you. Again, manufactured.
Yeah.
I want to remind the diaspora and the over global Black community of the connection we have. And if it's I love and I think it's very exciting to do it through this idea of just one color and one plant and showcasing. Even the door of no return is blue. The door of no return is indigo. I'm like, I don't know. I'm very much like conspiracy. Like, why? What does it all mean? What does it all mean? Why do we paint Black people in this dark blue a lot of times in paintings? It's in our DNA, how we use what we have in our grasp to then be able to tell our own story. And that's what I'm hoping to do with this. I'm hoping with all my work I do is tell the stories that need to be told that are usually forgotten. Yes, we had the civil rights movement. Yes, we've had the slavery. Yes, but what is the significant stories that is not about violence, that is not about oppression, that is not about erasure? It's like, what are those special stories that connect us all and see like we are out here. We are out here.
Exactly.
I don't know. Yeah.
And I'm
I
sure
get excited about it.
Yeah, I love it though. Like, and yeah, I also attended Penn Center in preschool, so just a tiny footnote.
I love that. They're so. I swear the community is so cute. And I went to that. What is it? The restaurant in the green building.
Yeah,
And got gumbo. Oh, and
the
the whole community.
the Gullah Grub.
Yes. I swear. That's one of the only. It's two other places in the United States I would live besides Brooklyn, New York, and that is New Orleans and the Gullah Geechee.
Okay. Yeah.
Precious. I love it.
Well, it's
I
home.
could speak to
It's
elders all
home.
day.
It's home. So come on down.
Yes. Oh, I love it.
Well, before we wrap, tell us how we can connect with you on social and what other projects are on the horizon, because as we've outlined in this conversation, there's just so many opportunities to fill in the gaps.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess you could reach me on. So I'm getting better with the social media. I'm not the best with that. So I guess it's just my name, Majella Mark, on everything. Just at Majella Mark. Majella Mark. I guess we'll spell it right. And so that's for Instagram. I try not to use Twitter. I use Blue Sky. And whatever else on the social medias. I'll get better at sharing, and I just get very weird. It's like, why did anybody care if I'm drinking coffee on a camera? I'm just but I'll get better at posting things, especially the work I'm doing. Of course I have my book. Again, it's Cats Are Trash Human Beings. It's coming out during International Women's Day on March 8th. My film, Connecticut Fault Lines, that again, bridges the connection to Martin Luther King Jr., that I'm very excited to teach that history. And then, of course, I have the Indigo Project. I haven't got a title for it yet. But yes, I'm doing the research now, and I have friends who are also simultaneously doing work on Indigo, including my friend Benaya Matheson. And I'm just out here just trying to do my best in preserving simple Black history, the mundane Black history that people usually kind of shrug their shoulders on. It's like, no, like it's important too. That dinner
Mm-hmm.
party you didn't think was important, of you and your friends having a discussion about whatever X, Y, and Z, that's history. Like, document it, write in your diary of a reflection after that conversation. I encourage that. This is my last. I encourage everyone to document their own history for those who comes after them. Don't think it's something that is not important. Don't think like, well, I'm not famous, or I don't. Who cares? Who cares? Even if it's on social media, if it's 2 followers you have, document your history and archive it. Your photos, your post-it notes, your scrapbooks, because and I hope that, in a dream of mine, we could have like an Alexander where we just archiving all this Black history of just everyday people somewhere in the future, somewhere where we can then, our children's children, right, can look back and see like, wow, 2026 was wild. How
Yeah.
did they survive that? It's like, okay, well, we have it. People wrote it down. People, recorded themselves. People made songs about it. And they can learn, hopefully unfiltered,
Uh-huh.
the stories of their ancestors, who will be us. We have a responsibility as ancestors who are living today for
Yep.
those in the future.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah.
Thank you so much, Troy.
This was fun.
Yeah. Thank you for tolerating my rants. Me just going on about
Yeah.
it. Appreciate it.
And there was a whole lot that we could have gotten into that I
Okay.
left on the cutting room floor for now, because we
Okay.
may have to do
That's
a part 2
fine.
sometime soon. So, but
I
yeah,
appreciate you.
this is
Thank you
great.
for having me.
Yeah, thank you for making some time for me.
No problem.
All right, so for Stop, Look, and Listen, I'm your
Yeah.
host, LeTroy Gardner. See you next week. Peace and blessings, and make sure you check her out on www.majellamark.com.
Thank you. Yes. Appreciate you dearly.